Good morning and good evening, everyone. Good morning in Korea and good evening in the United States. I am so privileged to share with you tonight about some of the secret things that are hidden in the study of eschatology and others. But some of you who are watching these video clips actually is coming from Austria and Czech Republic and Hungary and others. I believe they may understand better than us because tonight I'm going to talk about the European history. If you have been already studied in the history of the United States, I think you may have better comprehension on these issues because this will back you up to go further and deeper understanding on the New World Order and other issues which are closely interrelated to so-called one world economy. Before I'm going to give my lecture, I think some of the whistleblowers who declare and disclose some of the hidden things while they're working inside of the secret society, such as like MI6, and Freemasonry, and Illuminati, others. And then, their hidden story was explored so well. So one of the story, this is actually James Musker. The title is The New World Religion, the Beliefs of the Elite. And this is a very easy reading books, but however, it tells about the truth, how he experienced before. And this is, I think, the previous lecture I explained already, Dr. John Coleman, who worked in MI6, and he disclosed about the Illuminati and Freemason and what he experienced inside, and then he talks about also Club of Rome and the 300 Men and others, the Bilderbergers and all others. So this one is very key book to those who are studying newly about the end time scenario. And I think this is also one of the books that I explained like 2 or 3 weeks before about Tavistock Institute. So this is what the MIT and the University of Washington State and Michigan and others had is closely interrelated. And this is the beginning of the masterminded about some of the infrastructure of the organizations which give the secret society global wide. So this one, the subtitle is Social Engineering the Masses, how they manipulate the masses. And I think this is also a governmental level, so-called CIA and FBI, and also US governmental level, the devil's the crossboard. And very thick, and here all of the JF Kennedy, the assassination, and the Johnson, and all the FBI, Hoover, all those stories in detail. This is not lie. This is the whistleblower's testimony, what they experience, and they tell everything what they have done exactly. So some of you are hearing my lectures and gave me a feedback that it is not easy to understand. One of the sister who lives in Stoneham says that I watched your video clip more than twice, but I'm not still comprehending what you talk about. So I need to watch it again. So I understand because I give whole story in the great span which gives very historic and periodic phenomena is one line. Therefore, it is not easy to comprehend when you hear. So I hope that you may be able to understand if you go more than 2 or 3 weeks later, when you hear more from me, and then you will be able to understand. So please don't get angry at me because, so I'm going to give you a kind of very intense one. But however, when you replay it, and then you will be able to do it. And also, I told you this lecture is not in public, so this is more likely private, and you will get the information upon the request from you. So we are not going to actually disseminate it in public. So Hope that if you want to have any idea and resource, please contact me. Otherwise, you contact OHCC's, the Open Heaven Community Church, in the Facebook. And also, if you have some other questions, please write down in the chat room so that we'll be able to communicate and how we are able to also better off for understanding the things we are going to study. Tonight, my lecture is not easy. It's much harder than the last week. So I'm not going to be lying because this is not easy for us to understand. However, I cannot make it shorten. Actually, last week and this week and next week will be continually connecting to one another. So some of you may understand, or some of you not may understand what I'm going to speak. But if you bear with me a little more in patience, and then you can see the flow, what the whole world is really operating. And also, I don't want to say the gossips, rumors, or the things in the clouds, but I'm going to speak the things really happen in history. So over and over with the cross-checking, that only the historical fact that I'm going to share. Other than that, I'm not going to share. So this is a real thing. So, if you are able to study on the history of economics, maybe you will be very familiar with my lecture tonight, because these are all interrelated to one word economy, at the same time, the economic history. So it is very familiar, like the history of the banking system, the history of trade, and history of the international war, and also foreign relations, and international affairs, and others. This is something, it's like if you study at the JFK, the Kennedy School, you will be very familiar with that. So I don't have doubt about it. But when you hear first time from my lecture, perhaps I believe it's going to be difficult for you. So please bear with me from the beginning to the end, and then you will see the flow. So if you understand the flow, that's good, because it will give you the next week that you will have much better understanding how the United States will have the modern day, another one say the 20th century banking system based on FRB, the Federal Reserve Board, and also the modern day, the superpower as the United States giving the international standard of banking trades. So this banking trade and banking system may give the international transactions according to so-called the BIS. That's the BIS is so-called the Bank of International Settlements. So the BIS has kind of subordinate structure which we call the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And underneath of the IMF and World Bank, all the superior, the governmental levels, such as like European Unions and the NAFTA and others. So tonight, all of the things are very macroscopic view rather than the microscopic view. I hope that many of you may understand some of the very grandeur picture, yet many of us may not heard those things. So please bear with me a little more so that until you are able to fully comprehend what I'm going to speak about. So let me give you my lecture from the PowerPoint. This is a 9th lecture. This is 9th week, so we have little more than 2 months in connection with the COVID-19. So in the beginning with the COVID-19 was very light. It's not heavy. It was like, very short-handed presentation as I looking on all the things that I did it. But from 3rd, 4th week, it gets a little heavier and it's like harder. And then I think 4th and 5th week, it's really, we just hit the bottom. I believe tonight's lecture may give you some of the ideas why I am saying this with the biblical references that's coming from New Testament and Old Testament as well. So my lecture tonight is the New World Order, one of the three categories, the one world government, one world religion, and the last part is one world economy. The one world economy may not give you the idea because you cannot see it because we are belonging to the national system of economy. If I live in the United States, I am familiar with the economic system in the United States. If I am living in Austria, I am very familiar with the Austrian economic system. If you're living in Kenya, perhaps you are very familiar with that. But on the other hand, we have global common economic system. Until you go to understand that the grandeur, that means the global scale of the economic system, we need to have a little more the historical background to be comprehended in our understanding. Therefore, tonight, I'm going to give you a little more about the Rothschild, that the plural means like, many children, the branches and the interconnected, the clans and others. So the Rothschilds, or sometimes Rothschild, but whatever you call it, Rothschild or Rothschild, it doesn't matter how to pronounce. But I would rather pronounce Rothschild, but sometimes Rothschild. So Rothschilds in Europe and United States, if I give you lecture. So tonight, I'm going to read the scripture first, the book of the Revelation 13, 18 to 10. All who dwell on the earth will worship him. The him means here to the Antichrist. So all who dwell on the earth will worship him. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of the life of the Lamb who has been slain. And if anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. All people in the world that are not believers in Christ will worship the Antichrist. If you see the 4 verses, if you're looking at, because here the first one, all who dwell on the earth will worship him. If you don't worship him, another means if you don't worship Antichrist, what is way? You will be killed. You will be persecuted. You will be eliminated from the society. So the 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 to 4 says, let no one in any way deceive you, for it will not come unless apostasy come first. The Bible tells us apostasy come. So WCC or liberal theology or homosexuality in Christian theology are going to come first. Because this is the way the people living the faith from the Bible. And they will get astray from the foundation of sound doctrine in the Bible. This is apostasy, not only in the land of the Muslim, in the land of Buddhism or North Korea, but also in the land of the religious freedom, where you can live and go free way to worship, but you may leave the faith. Why? Because there will be time of apostasy. So the man, why? Okay, let me read it again because I'm explaining, but I'm going to read it from the beginning to the end. The 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 to 4. Let no one in any way deceive you, for it will not come unless apostasy come first. The man of the lowliness, the man of the lowliness. Here, the man of the lowliness means like, this man doesn't care about God. This man doesn't care about the Bible. This man doesn't care about the Christ Messiah. This man doesn't care about the truth in the Bible, but he doesn't care because he's called lowless. He called lowliness. The Antichrist is called the lowliness, the man of the lowliness. The lowless man is revealed. Why? Before the 7-year tribulation, because there is a foreshadow that we can take a look, his existence will be revealed. It's not all of a sudden the Antichrist will appear. No, that's not going to happen. It's truly, we will see some of the foreshadows. Something already is able to see in our own eyes, because the Antichrist will give some of the clips and tips and clues. Therefore here, the man of the lowliness, the Antichrist, is revealed, the son of destruction. He is called the son of the destruction. Why? The son of destruction who opposes and exalts himself. He will exalt himself like he will be sitting on the Christ seat, and who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God. So he'll be called God, or otherwise he'll be better than the gods. An object of worship, he'll be worshipped among the people. He'll be praised, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God and displaying himself as being God. This is going to happen. So can we see any traces in history? The Antichrist, theologically, historically, we have been some of the examples to seeing some of the Antichrist, like Martin Luther, John Calvin, seeing the Pope of the Roman Catholicism. This is the Antichrist. And some of them in the Middle Ages calling the Islam, the Muhammad, is the Antichrist. And also in the early church, some of the theologians say that the Emperor Nero is the actual resembling or the seed of the Antichrist. However, we are not sure, but at the end time, when every biblical prophecies are being fulfilled, we are sure that this Antichrist will be revealed better than the Nero, the better than Hitler, the better than the Napoleon, the better than the Muhammad, the better than the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. So one thing we are sure, he will be called as God. So let me give you another scriptures tonight, that 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 8 to 12. And then the lawless one is the man is called the lawlessness. So that's the Satan, or the Antichrist, one who delegates to Satan. So, and then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by splendor of his coming. And the coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. Actually the Revelation explains detail, because the power of Lucifer, the power of Satan, give power to the beast, and the beast died and then resurrected. The resurrected one is indicated as the Antichrist in the 7-year tribulation in the middle of time. So we know here today that he will use all sorts of displays of power. Number one, power. The power including economic, political, governmental, religious, through signs and wonders that serve the lie. It is not about truth, not about the lie. So in fact, and in all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing, because the wickedness will serve to accelerate the deception. So many people believe this is true. Another one, masses. A lot of people being manipulated by media, newspaper, television, news, and others as like that. So that they are becoming blinded. They become muted in their ears, not to hear the truth. They cannot discern from their hearts, though they seeing something. Nowadays, we have problem of discernment. It is not a problem of how many we are lack of the information or the data. We have plenty, abundant amount of the all kind of information data in our society through the cybers and others. But we cannot distinguish which one is true and untruthful. So here, all the ways the wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. My lecture purpose is not giving you any information. Information is so grandeur. I'm not going to give you information, but I want to give you the eyes of discernment, how to see the world, how to understand the world, what's going on and operating by the evil schemes and also satanic power and authority. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion God sends them a powerful delusion. It's not about directive. It's not about the sound doctrine, but it's about powerful delusion. You understand the delusion? So that they may believe the lie. Because if you ask the Spirit of the Lord open and actually unbox your eyes, unlisten your eyes to see the what that God wants to see the truth, He will help us. If we do not do, God will send what? The powerful delusion so that we can be blinded. We can be muted. Brethren, please to understand the scripture what says that so that all will be condemned. Because we see the things around the world, but we don't understand. We hear the truth of the Lord, we cannot discern. Or we hear the lie, but we believe the lie. And we also understand the lie, and then we go astray according to our deception. So that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in wickedness. Another means all of the people will be condemned because they like the lie, they like the untruth, they like the lustful mind, they like the all kind of deception and the satanic scheme. Brethren, the Revelation 19:20-21 says, but the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed the signs in its behalf. With these signs, he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. And the two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. The rest were killed with the sword coming out of the mouth of the rider on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves on the flesh. Brethren, these are the destiny of Satan. And how he'll be put in the eternal fire. We call the so-called the abyss of fire, the bottomless, the limitless, fire that he'll be put in forever eternal judgments, at the end, because his lie will be revealed. So before we are going to be deceived, I pray that all of those who are watching and coming together here may have the understanding of the scriptures by the wisdom of the Lord, and have understand what kind of world we are living today. Brethren, so the destiny of the Antichrist, his false prophet, and all who worship him and have the mark of beast. Before the society will implement the mark of beast, in our hands, don't be deceived. A lot of people say that before, like berry chip and some of the chips that they're going to insert in our vein or in our brain, in some cases like forehead. We don't need that system anymore. Why? Because much better the so-called the radio system developed. So they don't need to insert the chip in our brain. They don't need to put any kind of the material in our vein. Why? They just shine their razor, and they just put the number. Each of us, every one of us in the world will be given the number. That is called the identification number. This identification number may give the functioning as a passport and plastic card, and also identification card, and the so-called healthcare card, and some cases like the plastic numbers, and all those of the numbers that you have, your house and your occupations and your all of the resume, whatever. These not going to be bring by computer, but by just number. The Bible clearly states that we'll be given the number. When we have this number, that the secret of the number is 666, the number of the beast. We are living in these ways right now, brethren. Every technology, every banking system, the clouds by Apples and Googles, and even more, the other companies already set up that this indicating the numerical number on our forehead, on our hands and in arms and in our body are not going to be difficult to have that. So all of us will be given this number. We are living in this world. Many years ago, there are a lot of people questioning on this very chip, and they say that, Pastor Kim, it's very cheap. It's the 60s mark. And I told them, no, I don't think so. Why? This is not bestly advanced. So I'm expecting the much better one. And then when I said that, I think 7 years ago, it's already done. It's already done. So we'll be given the number. It's like, if you're living in the United States, you have Social Security number. The Social Security number will indicate your passport number, your identification number, your plastic card number, and it will indicate also your healthcare number. And all of those will be so-called integrated in one system, so-called one world economy. You don't need to bring your passport. You don't need to bring any identification number. You don't need to bring any other things like wallet. You don't need a plastic card. You don't need a cash, because we are going to be living in a cashless society soon. And if you want to go any other countries like in Africa or the Asia, Europe, whatever, you don't need any material on your hand by wallet or plastic cards. Yet your body will tell you who you are, because you will have markup number in your body. We are living in this society right now. So if you don't understand tonight's lecture, next week and the following next week will be difficult for you to understand. Why? Because this will be the basic understanding for you, how we are living in 2020 society. For having this already technology available, what the book of Revelation explains, that wherein the beast will overreign in our society. So, the mark of the beast. The people who reject Christ and receive the mark of the beast will suffer a great deal in tribulation for 7 years. The many of us believe that we are not going to go through that one. I believe the Church of Jesus Christ will be raptured in the air before the tribulation, what I believe. So I explained last week, so why do I teach? The poor people who get astray or leave the faith, or otherwise remember the faith later on when tribulation begins, so that they may return to the Lord. So the Antichrist will control the commerce and the one world economic system. So the book of Revelation 13, the verses 16 to 18, the mark of beast, 66, is a secret number to everyone. This number begins by the Rothschild. And also they created the national flag of Israel. And I'm going to tell you that every secret tonight. It's a big and deep and greater and wider secret that you may know. And also one world currency will be indicated soon and be used. And this one is, we don't need a dollar, we don't need euro, we don't need any other the Canadian dollar, but we are going to be having one currency soon. So this one is actually in the directive of the BIS, so-called the Bank of the International Settlements, which headquartered in Switzerland. They will tell us, the whole world, the IMF and World Bank and ADB and also the AMF, the African the Monetary Fund and all others will follow, and the central bank of each nation will follow that way. Then each governmental level and the private bankings and the corporation and the masses will follow that way. This one is already set. We don't need to see that they are being preparing. It's already prepared. One world currency will be implemented soon. And we'll be living soon the cashless society. We are not going to be needed anymore, the cards. I think some of you know that. When we also doing the transaction in internet, sometimes we don't need the card, just swipe or insert. Instead, we just put the number. And that's it. So every one of us will be given the number. But the only thing is the syncing and integrating between the personal identification number, passport number, healthcare number, medical insurance number, and also the personal plastic card numbers and others. That all those will be integrated to one another into one system. We call it cashless society, that one identification per personal purpose will be used in our society soon. This one is already written in the Bible, the book of Revelation, what I said, the Revelation 13 and 16 to 18. I told you, all of a sudden, this society is not going to happen because there is always foreshadow. There is always consistency. The society cannot be doing, like we are living in the United States, in Boston, in USA, and then suddenly I'm going to be living in Mars. No, that's not going to happen. There is always continuity. Yesterday will bring us today. Today will be the fast according to future tomorrow. So the Antichrist and the world government will give very important role in making world economy. The world will be controlled by the Antichrist soon and the one world government. One world government actually is a puppet. Why? Without the economic system, it's not going to be powerful anymore. So it will be used to control and manipulate people to reject Christ and worship the Antichrist. That's the core. But on the other hand, and actually the economic system is functioned by the number of the beast, the secret number of the beast. The people who reject Christ and receive the mark of the beast will suffer a great deal and in tribulation for 7 years. Why? Because every transaction and trade and living in our family and society will be functioned by the one world economic system. So Adolf Hitler already explained about one world war. He wants to unify the whole of the world. He wants to create Japan and Italy and Germany, unify the whole of the world into his system. He told that in his the memo. National socialism will be used its own revolution for establishing a new world order. German Nazi, the Nazi in English was nationalism. German Nazism means to us, he wants to create this socialism in a way of new world order. He wants to unify the whole of the world. So this is actually in German, and actually he says that my stripe. He explained why he is trying to unify the nations around the world. And if you know here, Evelyn de Rothschild, he said that here the power behind the power. Modern nations and free societies are an illusion. It is not the reality, because you are living behind by the illusion. There are those among us who consider themselves the elite of the humanity. Those would be the emperors feel it their right and destiny to control and rule, not govern this country, indeed the world. Who are there? The people who control over money, who actually have power over economics and transaction of the money, may control over emperors and kings and presidents and government leaders. So this was really done, and it has been done by the Rothschild family for more than 260 years. So in 1919, the president of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, he confessed one of the striking issues regarding the financial factors of the Rothschild family and also the Federal Reserve. Because this year, actually between this time, in 1913 and 1919, he saw that America belongs to Rothschild. So that's why he confessed this. I am a most unhappy person. I have unwittingly ruined my country. He said that I destroyed my country, the United States. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of the credit, because Rothschild created the FRB, the Federal Reserve Board. And because I'm going to explain, you'll understand, because I have been shortening all those stories. But if you're looking at the stretched out in detail, you'll be surprised. Because this story must be told many hours and many months. We are no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by the conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and the endurance of the small group of dominant man. The dominant man, the very few handful people who can control over FRB and also the secret society in the United States. President Woodrow Wilson confessed a lot. If you just Google, if you buy books, he told a lot of secret that America was deeply shifted and changed and transformed into Rothschild-like society. Let me give you another one, the Heine, the very famous, who is the friend of Rothschild for a long time in Austria, Habsburg dynasty. And he has been witnessing all of those transactions, the secret transactions, what Rothschild doing in the name of their the economic system. The money is the God of our time, and the Rothschild is his prophet. All of the money transactions, everything in European society in America, what he observed, the Rothschild, they are the prophet of the money. The money, he calls it the mammon, that is God or Satan, Lucifer. The most of the Rothschild family is Luciferian. Many we believe the government is changed. The changes in government. The Bretton Woods Conference of the 1944 is no longer indicating that all of the denomination and currency are being transactions in the basis of the gold. So without gold reserve, we are able to print out more denomination of the bearer of the dollars and each country's trends, the currencies. So based on this, and also the two important international banking systems were created. The first one is so-called the IMF, second one is World Bank. But behind the scene is the top of top is actually BIS, the Bank of the International Settlement. So International Monetary Fund is actually masterminded by the Rothschild family for a long time. In December 1945, the article of the agreements for the IMF was signed by 29 governments of each country. And the World Bank was created later on. Then they got so-called the general agreements on the tariffs and trades. It's like Rothschild in the Holy Roman Empire break the barriers of all of the tariffs and actually trades and custom taxes. And now they expanded not only in Europe, but also in America and other parts of the world. On January 1st in 1995, this got transformed into WTO, which is called the World Trade Organization, replaced by God. So some of you know him or not, I'm not sure, but this guy is actually working in the Netherlands as an operating kind of private company as a banker and an entrepreneur. But as a young boy, young man, and he earned a lot of money, and then the higher society person who belongs to the elite society of the BIS, so-called the Bank of the International Settlement, who control global money and asset. And he said that, why are you working hard? And he said that, oh, I want to earn money more. And he said that, can I give you an opportunity that you will get much higher money? He said, yes, I'm willing. I can. And the gentleman says that there is only one condition for you. If you want to work with me, you have to give 10% of the profit, give it to me. At the same time, put your conscience into pressure. So make your conscience pre-frozen means, don't think about your conscience. Whether you see like immoral thing, unethical, some cases like, unrightful things you do. Don't think about your conscience. So he earned a lot of money. and 10 times, 100 times than ever before when he runs like the corporation before. And then all of a sudden he saw all of the secret society. He realized that what he couldn't believe, all of these people are behind the scene. No one noticed who they are. No one knows. Their names are not written in the bank numbers. Their names are not appeared in media. Their names are not actually acknowledgeable in any books. Yet they are living in our society. He said that at least 8,000, 8,500 men on the top of the top control over the world. The president and king are much lower than them because they control in money. I'm not going to give you a lot about him, but whether you believe or not, but some of the things he confessed, you have to listen to what he said because this is from his experience. He cannot prove where we walk because he said that if I say about the organization, I'll be killed and assassinated. So that's what he made the allegiance before. That is the reason he couldn't expose what he belonged before, but he can say what he did a little bit. So let me share what he said a little, not all of those. To put it in carefully, the most people followed a not very mainstream religion. These people, most of them were Luciferian, where he was able to working with a higher and higher, giving the unbelievable amount of money profit taking. And he said that they are all belonging what? The Luciferian. And then you can say the religion is a fairy tale. God doesn't exist. None of that is real. Well, for these people, it is true. In reality, they serve something immaterial, and they call it Lucifer. The one who controls all of the world, believing in Satan. Today, the book of Revelation that I read, and the 2 Thessalonians that I read, two things. A lot of people being deceived. Even you see the world. You see the New York, you see the Manhattan, you see the Washington, D.C., you see the London commercial banking sectors in the city of London. Yet, you don't realize how they operate in the world. You don't realize how Satan is at work. Please, brethren, open your hearts and open your eyes, seeing what Satan is going to deceive you. And he said that these higher society people belonging to the Luciferian club. The Ronald Burns continued his testimony on the interview of the Dutch television. So you can watch it in YouTube if you just type right his name, Donald Bernard. And I hear him many times. And I also was in contact with those circles. Circle means like the top of the tops. Only I left at it, and because to me, they were just clients. So I went to places called the Church of Satan, the Churches of Satan. And as I visited these places, they were doing their holy mass with a naked woman. But he explained furthermore, with a naked woman, sometimes like we called infant sacrifice as a life. So I visited these places, and they were doing their holy mass with a naked woman and liquor and stuff. So in some cases, like, the very Jesuit-like. And it just amused me. I didn't believe in any of these stuff and was far from the convinced of any of this was real. In my opinion, the darkness and the evil is within the people themselves. And I didn't make the connection yet. So I will give you a little more testimony for you to understand. So I was a guest in those circles, and it amused me greatly to see all those naked women and other things together. It was a good life, but then at some moments, why I am telling you this, I was invited to participate in sacrifice abroad. And he testified that thousands and 10,000s of the young boys and young girls, and many of you know the human trafficking of the infant baby and others like Molech and Baal, the what Bible prohibiting, not to give any humane the sacrifice. This is a blasphemy in the Bible. But, Bohemian Grove, the Illuminati and Freemason, and, if you know, the other secret society, so-called the Club of Rome and the Bilderberg, one of the commonality, what they are doing is actually infant sacrifices in their meeting. He was able to participate and saw it. But actually, when he was a child, he was abused by his father. He didn't tell what kind of abuse he received, but, probably including like physical harassment together with the sexual abusement. I'm not sure, but I feel like when he was crying, when he confessed, because children being offered as a living sacrifice unto the Lucifer. He said that no, because he was reminded what he has felt when he was young by his father, of being beaten and stricken and molested. I'm not sure, but but when I heard the interview, Ronald Burns says that if you read the Protocol of Zion, I think many weeks ago I showed you about the Protocol of Zion, but unluckily we didn't have any record, so that section was not recorded and we are not able to produce anymore. I don't know, but that is very, very important what I share. But I have PowerPoint and others. So some other point, I will begin again about the protocol of the land elders of the Zion. So this is very important. He said that if you read the protocol of the land elders of Zion and really study them and understand, and then it is like reading the newspaper for the daily life, how from their position of the ultimate power, and ultimately it has literally become, and that is only because the people don't stand up for themselves, but they don't realize what reality is. In other words, what the protocol of Zion is a textbook for the secret society, that what they are doing exactly identical to the contents of the protocol of Zion. So you will be surprised. This is already indicated in the Bible because, though they are Jews, they are not Jews. Why? They belonged to what? Belong to the congregation, another one, the synagogues of Satan. They belong to synagogue of Satan. What is synagogue of Satan? Is churches of Lucifer. They belong to the churches of Lucifer. The Freemasons all the time call upon the name of the Lucifer in everywhere. The Illuminati call upon the name of the Lucifer. Jesuit priests, when they are inaugurated as a priest, they call upon the name of the Lucifer. When Francis Pope, the inaugurated as a Pope, and he called upon the name of the Lucifer first time. And we are wondering, even if we're hearing in our eyes, we are not questioning about it. Please don't be deceived. So one world economy and the international banking system are very closely correlated in our society, even more the global societies. So on top of it, we call the BIS, but over the BIS, there are the 8,000 to the 8,500 elite people who overruns and rules and reigns around the world. Underneath of their leadership, the Bank for the International Settlement, the BIS, and there the IMF and World Bank, and the central banks of each country. Then below there, the regular banks and stock market centers like the London stock market, the Manhattan stock market, and Hong Kong and Tokyo and others. Then what happened? The multinational corporation, and then below there, what? The governments, United States, UK, Germany, China, and then below there, what? The people, the masses. They call it what? They are just like eater, massive eater like ant. So one world economy pyramid in saying the system they created according to Genesis 3:15 and Revelation 20:20, they are rebellioning. They are actually against. They disobeying what God says, the order of creation, the order of the righteousness by the blood of the Lamb. So in fact, you see on top of the pyramid, you see the all-seeing eyes of Satan's eyes. And this is $1 bill, you know. And also a lot of the Illuminati and Freemason engraved in the currency and others, and even architectural design and urban design in the cities. So BIS, IMF, World Bank, and the Central Bank, and all those systems are very, very organizational. Brethren, the IMF, World Bank are not birthed at once. It was created very in detail for some purpose. The IMF has a strategy to centralize control of the international finance, because centralized international finance in the events of international crisis, you have to looking at the international crisis, some cases international wars, because behind of the scene, we call BIS, the Bank of the International Settlements, and on top of the BIS, the key elite people know how to create war, how to create the revolution, how to create the demonstration, how to create even the crisis. And this is going to be a greater opportunity for them to get more portion rather than ever before. It would be easy for IMF to step in and seize control of the nation's currency and economics. That's the cases in 2008 in Thailand and Malaysia and in Taiwan, in Korea, South Korea, and I think that's in 1997. That's the IMF, we call the resettlement project in those countries, and 2008 so-called the economic crisis by the Lehman Brothers in New York. All those, they make their fortune triples and sometimes quadruples. Why? This is real what the stock market told us. They create the crisis, and then they just grab the great amount of fortune. Why are they doing this? Because they learned from history. They are the professional of using words, Napoleonic words. Waterloo words by the General Wellington and Napoleon. They uses the Bolsheviki, the revolution in 1917 in Russia. They uses the French Revolution in France. They've been also manipulating also the Anglo-American War in 1812. They've been manipulating also the another war, so-called the Kosovo. They are the professional, how they gain more in profits, not just like, 10%. But I'm going to tell you, some case, Nathan, sometimes 2,000 times than ever before. So I'm going to tell you Nathan Rothschild, how he did it in England. This is a true history. Satan saying lying. History never lies. History is what it was happen, what it was exist. The World Bank gives low interest rate. So remember, all of the one world economy is giving the opportunity for every people on planet Earth will be indebted. Another means like credit bearer. You are the debtor. Meaning when one child is born in America, this baby carries several thousand amount of debts on his body. Japan, if you know that, already twice than the gross domestic product, they have the national debts. Many of you know that the debt system around the world, because the Satan driving the whole world into debt system. When you buy when you buy your house, you will never get out of that debt system until you pay off. This system is not created by God. When God said to Israelites coming out of the Egypt and saying, don't charge that interest to your fellow man in your country. because I delivered you out of the Egypt as free of charge. But God allows the Israelites, poor foreigners, you can charge them. So when the Christian world in the European civilization implementing this idea, seems like the European Christendom doesn't want to pay the interest. Therefore, they don't want to work in this transaction system, charging the interest, the usury. The mostly usury is being used by the Jews. So Umayyad Emirate in Spain for 700 years. And Ottoman Turks, all of the financiers, meaning the Secretary of Finance and Treasury, are Jewish. Because Muslims also, they don't want to charge the interest. The Christians and Muslims have the one common things. They don't want to implement this interest system. So all of the money trade and transactions are actually in the hand of the Jewish. If you know the Bernice, the merchant of the Bernice, that's the story of how Jewish people use money changing and money transactions, and even more, paying the credit and the interest. So they were able to control our European country by this money transaction. In fact, Rothschild family is professionally implementing in a way of the enactment of the law, meaning Federal Reserve System in the Holy Roman Empire. They created that same system, the Bank of England, when they reformed it. This system actually spread out all over the British Empire, which actually 1 in 4 land of the global village belonged to the British Empire. So their asset covers the 50% of the global gross, the product. One Rothschild family in the British Empire, they covered 50% of global products. And then you know what happened? They know how to use each country. They know how to also manipulate all of globe, not only the British Empire, including Spanish, because their branch belongs to Spain, their branch belongs to Italy, their branch belongs to Germany, their branch belongs to France. So they can internationally transacting together and creating the international banking. The Rothschild family were able to attain all of the control of the economy of the global village back then in the middle of the 19th century. So many of you know here, this interest system, the FRB receives interest, sometimes increase or sometimes decrease, and avoiding deflation or inflation, or creating inflation or deflation. And then they were able to control all of the societies in overall. The World Bank gives low interest rate loans to developing countries. The establishment of this group created a surge in international banking and global lending. So he is actually Rothschild family, Jacob Rothschild. My name is Jacob Rothschild. My family is worth $503 trillion. $500 trillion means like 2020 today, 50% of all global asset. If you sum up the United States and EU, Russia, Japan, and China, 50% of all global asset is $500 trillion. So my family is worth $500 trillion. We own nearly every central bank in the world because Deutsche Bank, the Bank of America, Bank of Scotland, the JP Morgan, Chase Manhattan, I'm not going to tell you a lot. So we own nearly every central bank in the world. We financed both sides of every war since Napoleon, post-World War, Second World War, Bolshevik War, French Revolution, Napoleonic War. They did all kinds of things. We own your news because they created and manipulated news. The masses believe what newspapers say, but the news are lying. The media, your oil, your government. You have probably never heard of me because they are not seen. In other words, they are unseen superpower. Otherwise, they are unseen, the powerful man. More than any president, any king, or any queen, or any prince, any ruler of any country around the world. I told you last week a little bit about the family tree of the Rothschild. The Meyer Amschel Rothschild is actually the origin of the Rothschild because although they have almost 700 years of history living in Germany, so-called the Holy Roman Empire. But the beginning from actually Meyer Amschel Rothschild, he has 5 sons, the Amschel first son, Solomon, and the third son, Nathan, and fourth, Carl, and the last one is James. And he sent 5 sons into the 5 countries in order to create the international banking system. This was done first time international banking system was created by him. So the Amschel didn't have any heir, because he didn't marry, he was single. And the Solomon, second son, and the Carl and the James. But the 2 are very important, James and Nathan. The James, if you know that he was dispatched by his father to Paris in France. Therefore, you have heard some of things like Edmund Rothschild Company. We call Rothschild and CO. That's actually Edmund family. However, the Nathan, the third son of the Rothschild, the Amschel, so-called Meyer Amschel, is the greatest man in terms of making fortune much greater than ever before, 1,000 times. And he is also creating the British Empire economic system at the same time. The newborn country, United States of America, the first Bank of America, the second Central Bank of America, later on we call FRB. And, the Schiff family, the Rothschild living in the ghetto in Frankfurt, and the next family, the next neighbor was Schiff family. They intermarried. They're like true family members. The Schiff family was being sent by Rothschild in order to create the JP Morgan and others. Actually, America is not able to, exist without this connection being supported by the Rothschild family for banking system. So here the Nathan, so I just want to pay attention to the connection what Nathan created in the time of the Napoleonic War. The Napoleonic War is like Napoleon from France invaded the adjacent country in Spain and Netherlands and the Holy Roman Empire, including Russia. So most of the country we call the Austro-Hungarian Empire fell upon his fire, and Habsburg and the Holy Roman Empire were being actually subdued by his power. Only the things Russia was actually unsubdued, means they were not actually falling under the power of the Napoleon. And then later on, when the Napoleon reinsulates the second emperor time, and he created the war between the Britain, that we call the War of the Waterloo. The Wellington from Britain side, and then the Franks, all of the allies, the French side, fighting in the Waterloo, and then you may able to know that Russia supported the British Empire. And then what happened? Rothschild, one in France, we call the Paris French, and one in London. Both sides, they funded the governmental money. Because Rothschild, we call Nathan in London, funded the Russia and even the English army. Without that money, they were not able to have that. And then in the French side, Edmund family, they also funded the money for French side, and they gained fortune much greater than ever. And then, but more likely when the Britain was able to win the war, because Rothschild, because 5 branches, one in Naples in Italy, one in Florence, one in Frankfurt in the Holy Roman Empire, one in Vienna in Austria, and one in London in Britain. The 5 international systems were followed by the postal service. because they have the secret errand person who gives always the very valuable information in order that they can sell the stock or buy stocks in advance. So 24 hours earlier than the news being published in London, and Rothschild family, because funded both sides, the French side and the English side, and they know that the French was defeated and English won. So, this news was actually penetrated into Rothschild family. So within 24 hours, they went, Rothschild family, the Nathan actually is handed by his father, the so-called Mayor Amschel gave him the money out of the prince will, we call the Prince of Hesse. And the money was actually not his own, but his triple and thousandfold. And then later on, he gave this money, and I'm going to explain to you later, but he gave the money and purchased some of the stocks. And then in the morning, as soon as the stock market is opened, his men coming into the stock market and secretly selling without saying anything. Their faces are very gloomy. And their actions are very desperate. And they are very speedily and quickly selling the stock. And then all others watching them. And they know that the England is defeated. This rumor spread out because they know that the Rothschild connection is the number one so-called espionage. What happened? Within a few minutes, all of the stockholders coming into the stock market and selling. The price beginning from the 1-to-1 and drop into 1 in 20. 1 in 20. So you understand the march. It dropped it. And just right before the sunset, Nathan came and just grabbed all of the stocks like a paper. He gained several thousand times the profit gain. In this way, he was able to control of the larger and great portion of the Bank of England. The Bank of England became private banking later on because of his control. You know how Rothschild controlled in war and funding, manipulation, espionage, some cases lying and killing, assassination. So these 5 keys, the mastermind person for the one world economy. I told you last week that the Adam Weishaupt was masterminded in creation of the Illuminati. The idea is the creation of the New World Order. New World Order is the controlled by what? Controlled by whom? Satan, Lucifer. So he never been a Christian. Rothschild family never been a Christian. None of them. They are not actually true Jews, but of course all the prime minister of the Israeli governments are Ashkenazi Jews. They are not true Jews. Prime Minister Netanyahu and others, all the Ashkenazi, they are not true Jews. I told you last week. However, if you know this connection, being the Rothschild family, actually working in Christian European nations, they never been converting into any single the Protestantism or Catholicism. So 5 branches, if you know the Paris in France, London, and the Frankfurt, and Being, Austria, and Naples in Italy. These are the ones actually make international banking system to expand their connection more. So I told you the Heinrich Heine, he said that, the money is God and Rothschild is their prophet. Mammon God, the Satan, the Lucifer. And if you know that today the Soviet Union, the communism, Rothschild is creating communism. Rothschild is creating socialism because they funded the Karl Marx and the Engels. They funded the money. And, if I want to say all those things, I may not have enough time to talk and explain. This is amazing. Brethren, Be open-minded in the eyes of the Lord from the Scripture. Don't be blinded what you see unreal things in your eyes. My armchair Rothschild, he said this: "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who write the law." Or last, whatever I think the law, he knows how to control the principality and free city and nation or kingdom. Why? The money is the key. He controls over government. He controls over people. He controls over nations. Why? He controls in money. So his third son, Nathan Rothschild, when he was sent, he was a very young man, but he was the most important and intelligent person. He's the smartest person among 5 sons. He said, "I care not what puppet." The puppet means like king or queen or president or prime minister, or whoever called the top of the government. "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets," because this British Empire was the greatest at the time. The man who controls the British money supplied the control of the British Empire. The man who controls the British money controls the British Empire. I control the British money supply. He controls the Bank of England. He controls the East India Company. He controls the entire nation. He controls Scotland and Ireland and the Northern Islands. He controls the British Empire. He wanted to control the newborn country, the United States of America. "Give me control over a nation's currency. I care not who makes it law." Same what his father said. His father says, "No, I don't care about the law because I control my money, and then the law and the system and the constitution will help for me." They are the one system creator. Why they call it New World Order? They want to destroy the traditional European old regime. European kingdom, European principality, European nationhood, and they created a new old order in order to be controlled by money. And the money that's supplied by their evil schemes, the Rothschild family. Who are they? They are masterminded by the Lucifer. They created all kinds of secret society in order to make easy manipulation of every dominion of the society in the world. Walt Scott, in his book, this is a very famous book, the historian, the professor, History of Napoleon. He states, "The French Revolution was planned by the Illuminati and funded by European bankers. All of the money came from Rothschild." This is what I explained when the Waterloo battle, when General Wellington won in the war game, yet they didn't know what happened. Rothschild secretly sell it, and all of the Londonry, the people, the citizens in the country came to stock market, and they sold out their stocks, and the prices plummeted. And they grabbed all of this just right before the stock market closes. Nathan Rothschild is also manipulating Napoleonic wars. Between 1803 and 1850, we call the panic year of the 1815. 5 Rothschild brothers supplied gold to Wellington and Napoleon army, both sides. One is in French side in Paris, the other in London in England. And they set up postal service in Europe first time, international postal service. That's why they can have high intelligent information in advance rather than any others to attain. The Battle of Waterloo, they manipulate, they printed boards, and they know how to create war all the time. And Nathan Rothschild made stock price 20-1 return on the investment. 20-1. Nathan became the richest man in Europe. In fact, he became the richest man in the whole world. Nathan had complete control over the British economy. Nathan Rothschild, he reformed the Bank of England. That's why FRB and a lot of central bank belongs to private. Why? Because Nathan Rothschild created this system. And Rothschild caused the panic of the 1825, and all the prices plummeted again, especially in France. And then what happened? Mass selling, mass buying happened in Paris, and French branch of the Rothschild family gained several hundred times the fortune than ever before, too. So high-level member of the Illuminati economists, or the inside of the insiders, are working on top of it. All Freemasons are members of the secret society, such as like the Templar Knights, Bohemian Groves, and all other societies. There are others, I'm going to tell you later on in detail. And a US FRB chairman is also Jews. This connection, over 260 years, setting up the global economic system. Rothschild and the Bank of England. The Rothschilds also used their control of the Bank of England to replace the method of shipping gold from country to country, and instead used their 5 banks spread across Europe to set up a system of paper debit and credit, the banking system of today. Then later on, they open up the Cairo branch. They also open up the Moroccan branch. They open up the other city branch. And then the Rothschild family, or otherwise they intermarried between the first cousin, second cousin, third cousin. If not, they intermarried cross family, like a Schiff family, or all of the Rothschild-like family. And then they send this dispatch to all of the inside of the insider, so-called the high elite people. And then when you receive 1 ton of gold in London, you don't need to send this gold, but you just telegram to the people in Cairo, I received 1 ton of gold. Can you release and withdraw the 1 ton of gold in Cairo? They receive all commission charge, and they did it. Nowadays, it is not amazing, but back then, it was striking. That's why they were able to have global transaction. That's why they were able to create a newborn, the Brazilian government, because they just give this branch transaction in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And that's why revolutionists, they were funded by Rothschild, and they create a new country of Brazil, just coming out of the Portuguese crown. Same thing happened. It's like in Canadian government and the Australian governments when they did it. The same thing in New Zealand and South African. And all of this Rothschild family branch in all corners of the world give their internal transaction, but all of the clients are inherited or benefited by international banking system, because this banking system actually give them money in another part of the world by just what? 2-3 things. The bond or note. Number 2, loan or debt. Number 3, what? Credit. So 3 systems they created. This is what we are doing in the modern system. We didn't have this system long before. There is no this kind of system even after the Reformation. This system, we have never had that in any time in the so-called medieval age. But because of Rothschild, they created the banking system. And then after the Napoleonic War, so many countries were under part of the Napoleon, like Austro-Habsburg, Hungary, Poland, Baltic 3 nations, Holy Roman Empire, Italy, Naples, Sardinia, all others belonged to Napoleon. When Napoleon fell by the defeat at the Waterloo, what happened? All of the head, the king of the prince of the principality and kingdom, meet together in Wien in Austria. We call the Congress of Wien. And all these are the head of them. But one thing you remember, all of them funded by Rothschild, except one country, Russia. Russia was far behind on modernization rather than any single country in European nation at the time. So Russia didn't have banking system back then. Unluckily for them, Rothschild didn't have any banking system in Russia. So Russia was not funded by the Rothschild. The French side, British side, French side is defeated and loser, and British side is winner. Yet they have same voice on behalf of Rothschild. They were about to create the so-called Federal Reserve System. And they want to be agreed in this kind of capitalism. But when everyone signed up on this treaty, only one person, the emperor, the Tsar, the Alexander of Russia, object to this agreement. Why? He was not funded by Rothschild. He didn't know the schemes of this. Rothschild got angry, and then they planned to upside down. Another means they want to throw Romanesque dynasty of Russia into destruction. They planned the socialism, communism. They funded the secret agent in Russia. They made 1917 Bolshevik revolution. They created the socialism. They funded and overthrown the crown of the Romanesque. But here, they were defeated. So the Congress of Vienna, Austria, Prussia, Russia, Great Britain, four powers, are actually alongside with the allies of the Great Britain. And they were chiefly instrumental in the overthrow of Napoleon, had concluded a special alliance among themselves with the Treaty of Shermont on March 9, 1814, a month before Napoleon's first abdication. So the subsequent treaties of the peace with France signed on May 30th, not only by four alongside of Great Britain, but also by Sweden, Portugal, and on July 20 by Spain. The Spain is added, and stipulated that all former the belligerent. The belligerent is like, more like the allies, the close party nations. The former belligerent should send the plenipotentiary to a Congress in Vienna because they wanted actually agree with that. But one of the risky things is actually Russia, as I told you. The Emperor Alexander disagreed. So nevertheless, the four still intended to reserve the real decision making for themselves. Everything is masterminded by Rothschild. So this was before the Napoleon War. When French Empire, when Napoleon gained, he over control in Spain, he over control in Italy, and Holy Roman Empire, Austro-Habsburg dynasty, and the modern day like Baltic three nations, and the part of the Denmark and others. Russia was not actually conquered by Napoleon. And that's why when World War began, Russia is alongside with the Great Britain. You remember. So after the Napoleon War, and Napoleon was defeated, and he was lost, what happened? German Confederation was created according to the Treaty of Peace in the Congress of Vienna in Austria, 1814. So in this nationhood, created the modern nationhood today. Because if you don't look at this, the nations we are saying, like Czech Republic, like Poland, Denmark, Estonia, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and Sweden, and Finland, and the Norway, and modern day, you may not name any nation at all. This is the beginning of the modern nation. Because if you are a historian, you have to tell always the Congress of Vienna in 1814. So this is the beginning of the modern nationhood. The Congress of Vienna is very important. However, something that did not go well for the Rothschild this year was the Congress of Vienna. Why I explained to you, which started in September 1814, they concluded in June of this year. What happened? The reason for this Congress of Vienna was for the Rothschild to create a form of the world government which is called one world economy. Another one is the Federal Reserve System, that everyone do not need a tariff and custom, and we don't need borderline transaction and trade. We don't need a banking different current system. We want to make the unified current system. But they were not able to create. Each nation will follow each rule. The Rothschild want to be unified, but they couldn't do it. Why? Because of one objection by the Russian Emperor Charles. So here, let me read again. The reason for this Congress of Vienna was for the Rothschilds to create a form of the world government, which is called one world economy, to give them complete political control over much of the civilized world, which is called European civilized nation. The sinister plot of the Rothschild is actually very satanic. Number one, they connect first the Freemason, and they actually started the inventory of the creation of the Illuminati, and they hired the Adam Weishaupt, and Jewish nation was begun by, and also protocol of the learned elders of the Zion also actually coincide by this, the idea of Adam Weishaupt. International banking system and Federal Reserve, and they created in Europe, and the later one in the United States. And then the idea of the New World Order. They want to be governed by one idea. They reject Jesus. They never believe in Christian world. They never accept the Christian gospel. They are very anti-Christ. The creation of a one world economy. This is very clear. I'm not telling 21st century version. This is already done long before, at least 200 years ago, more likely 250 and 60 years ago, by actually more likely Meyer, Amschel, Rothschild, and then 5 sons created in this time. So 200 years ago, Anglo-American War, and even if we say the Napoleonic War, First World War, Second World War, all the masterminded by the Rothschild family from its national side. If you're living in French side, you walk along the French side. However, if you are living in Austria, you will be walking out. But when Adolf Hitler, we have many stories. Adolf Hitler, Adolf means, that the German word, Hitler is Heidler. So the Heidler is like, the shortened version, and when he was born in Austria. So some of the historians prove that Adolf Hitler belonged to Rothschild family, whether his family served or one of them. But anyway, so this is many historians, actually there are several books. So Adolf Hitler is the one actually received the greatest ransom money from the Rothschild family in Vienna. That's still today the greatest amount of money he received in order to release the Vienna family. So, and then all of the Rothschild connection in Holy Roman Empire, or we call third reign of the German Empire. While Adolf Hitler reigned in the time as socialist country, they confiscate all of the properties of the Rothschild. And then after that, they were not able to recover. However, the British one is greater than anything, and they reconnected it. So Rothschild in Russia, as I told you, the Emperor, the Alexander, that many of the European governments were in debt to the Rothschild. Whenever war happened, Rothschild gets richer. So because they funded, they get interest, they get also double the number, and then you know what they manufacture the war weaponry. So they got all those. they use all kinds of benefits. That's why world trade. And they provide winery, they provided the food, they provided all kinds of the weaponry, so-called also the clothing, the uniform, the war uniform, and even more war machines. So their benefit and profit are immeasurable. So they figured they could use that as a bargaining tool. When sometimes they bargain a little bit in order to control more. And they can control over central bank. They can control over the whole government level when they bargain. And you can hear the tons of story about it. However, the Charles Alexander I of the Russia, who had not succumbed, that means like he didn't agree, who had not succumbed to a Rothschild central bank, would not go along with the plan, making one world economy system. So the Rothschild world government plan failed because of one objection made by the Emperor, the Alexander I, from Russia. So 1917, 100 years later, probably 110 years later, something, Rothschild revenged. They thrown Romanesque dynasty in total failure and destructions and devastation. Enraged by the Rothschild family, Nathan Mayer got angry and swore, and that someday, and even he himself, if not available, his children, he said that, my children will avenge Russia. He made a will, last will, please revenge Russia. So someday he or his descendant would destroy the Charles Alexander I's entire family and descendants. That's why Russia was destroyed. Soviet Union was created by Rothschild. Unfortunately, he was true that he means like Nathan Rothschild, third son of the Meyer Amschel Rothschild. He was true to his word, and 102 years later, Bolshevik was 1917, but however, much later. 102 years later, the Rothschild fronted Bolsheviks. Vladimir Lenin and Bolsheviks, fronted by the Rothschild. And so Rothschild fronted Bolsheviks would act upon their promise. Socialism, communism, Nazism, all created by Rothschild. They don't care about democratic system. They don't have any interest about any kind of the ideology. They care about money. So they set up the first bank of the United States when the Alexander Hamilton in the office in 1791. This is the first central bank of America. And the United States Congress permitted them just for 20 years. And then this is the great opportunity that the Nathan Rothschild was able to control entire United States. But the Alexander Hamilton and his cabinet realized danger of the European nationhood. And that's why they're lobbying the Congress. Don't allow them. So when the Congress, the House of Representatives in the United States voted, and renewal was not passed. So the first bank of the United States was not able to extend it in function. So Stephen Gerrard bought the first bank. This is the agent of Rothschild family by Nathan Rothschild. He was the first man to introduce the banking system in the United States. But yet, United States was different than the Britain and other country. And so, because there was no renewal, they created again in 1816, the second bank of the United States. And then they were permitted for 20 years. And after that, the House of Congress voted. In this time, we call Jacksonian era, so-called the Southerner, the Southerner coming from Georgia, the military officer, Andrew Jackson was in an office. And he knows the tactics of the Rothschild. And he said, don't allow them. So the second time, the House of Congress actually voted no renewal of the Second Bank of the United States. And then Nathan Rothschild got angry. So the charter for the Rothschild Bank of the United States runs out because the first renewal was not allowed, and the Congress voted against the second renewal. Nathan Mayer Rothschild is not amused. He was not happy, and he stated, either the application for renewal of the charter is granted, or the United States will find itself involved in most disastrous war. Why? When the first renewal was rejected, he created war. That's the Anglo-American War in 1812. He created war. That's why Andrew Jackson was an officer fighting against Britain, alongside the Canadian border down to the Mississippi River to so-called, all of the French territory at the time. And here, however, the United States stands firm and the charter is not renewed, which causes Nathan Mayer Rothschild to issue another threat: teach those impudent Americans a lesson, bring them back to the colonial status. Because he, control over British governments, create the war. That's the Anglo-American War. So the war of the 1812, the backed by the Rothschild money, because they funded the governments. And Nathan Mayer Rothschild ordered the British declare the war on the United States. And Rothschild's plan was to cause the United States build up to such a debt in fighting this war that they would have to surrender to the Rothschilds and allow the charter for the Rothschild-owned First Bank of the United States to be renewed. But it was not succeeded. And then, even if in the war, Americans didn't subdue to the call of the Rothschild, he created the panic, so-called intended control depression, in order to also make price drop, and having the stock will be very cheaply purchased by the Rothschild. So the American Congress passes a bill permitting yet another Rothschild-dominated central bank, which gives Rothschild control of the American money supply again. But this is called second bank after rejection of the renewal in the first bank of the United States. This is called the second bank of the United States and given a 20-year charter. The British war against the Americans therefore ends with the death of the thousands of British and American soldiers, but the Rothschild get their bank. So they gain more British side than American side. And the panic of the 1818 happened. The following, the French securing massive order to have to rebuild after disastrous defeat at Waterloo, that's the Napoleon War. Rothschild agent bought vast amount French government bond, causing their value to increase. So both sides, the French side and British side. And then on November 5, 1818, they dumped the lots on the open market, causing their value to plummet and francs to go into the financial panic. This is really happening by manipulation of the Rothschild family in French. The Rothschild then stepped in to take control of the French money supply, and they will control over the Bank of France. This was the same year the Rothschild were able to loan 5 million sterling to the Prussian governments. That's why they were able to control over the Prussian governments. Secondly, the panic of the 1819 in the USA, the sudden withdrawal of money, and they raised the interest rate, and they clamped down on debts. They clamped down on debts in order to the people get more land, but yet they become debtor and debtor. The foreclosure on houses and farms and businesses followed by this panic, and the Rothschild extension was declined by the Congress later on when they object the renewal. But however, they never stopped to coming into the land of the United States. That is very referred as the panic of the 1821 in Italy. the Karl Mayer Rothschild was sent to Naples, Italy. I said Nathan, Karl, and then Edmund, and the Mosers. But, actually this Karl is last son. And he would end up doing a lot of business with the Vatican. And Pope Gregory, actually 16. And subsequently conferred upon the Order of St. George. That is the reason why Rothschild still control over all of the Catholic money. The richest family as single institution in the world, greater than the United States, greater than EU, greater than China, greater than any single country, if you sum up all of the property of Catholic Church. They are actually, the so-called safeguarding or the secure guide. Or another one is like they are the caretaker of the finances of the Catholic Church. Also, whenever the Pope received the Carmen, he would give him his hand rather than a customary toe to kiss, which showed the extent of Carmen's power over Vatican. Some of us conspicuous to this is the Illuminati hidden sign. Still today, the Pope is using. The French Revolution, as I told you, 1827, so Walter Scott published his 9-volume set, The Life of Napoleon. Here, in the volume 2, he stated that the French Revolution was planned by Illuminati, aided by Soft, and was financed by the money changers of the Europe, mainly, mostly, majority, greatly, the Rothschilds. Rothschild in the United States. Andrew Jackson to wrestle control of the American banks from the Rothschild in 1835. This is the last year of the second year of the second bank of the United States by Rothschild. He knows the schemes of the Rothschild. He is the strong man take action against the Rothschild scheme. Rothschild caused another economic depression. That's why I told you 1818, 1815, and the subsequent year continued to create and cause the depression, the panic. And so they tried to assassinate Andrew Jackson by Richard Lawrence in 1835 because Andrew Jackson rejected the renewal and also allowing the Rothschild branch in the United States. So, and then later on, Abraham Lincoln also rejected that. What happened? Rothschild funded money and civil war begun. And finally, in 1912, Rothschild was succeeded in creation of the Federal Reserve System. Modern day, we are still under this system. This is private banking. So, President Andrew Jackson to Martin Van Buren in his memo, 1832. The bank, Mr. Van Buren, is trying to kill me, but I will kill it. The agent Rothschild, you are trying to kill me, but I want to kill you. So this is the assassination attempted in history of America in 1835. That was January 30, an assassin tried to shoot President Jackson. You see in the middle man, but the miraculously both assassins' pistols misfired. The President Jackson would later claim that he knew the Rothschild were responsible for that attempt assassination. He was not hit by any gun pistols. So 1835 assassination attempt, I'm going to give you a little more details. He is not the only one assassin, Richard Lawrence, who was found not guilty by reason of the insanity. Later, break that powerful people in Europe, who are there, Nathan Rothschild, had hired him and promised to protect him if he were caught. That's why Nathan Rothschild robbing all of the Supreme Courts and judges, and he was actually acquitted. And the Rothschild acquired the rights in the Almaden and the Quicksilver mines in Spain. They were able to create modern day coin. If you know quarter, if you know any European silver coin, because Spain silver mine created. And then all of the world, they created not only the denomination, but also the coin by their banking system. Modern day, we have the coin. This was the time, the biggest concession in the world as Quicksilver was a vital component in the refining of gold or silver. This gave the Rothschild virtual world monopoly. They can control all of the world by producing the money, coins, and banking system. Did you know a man once tried to assassinate Andrew Jackson, the former president, in the first time the Democratic leader in the United States, with two different pistols and failed both times? On January 30, 1835, Richard Lawrence attempted to shoot President Jackson while he was attending a funeral. His weapon misfired one after the other, so Mr. Jackson beat him near death with his cane. So this is very famous one. On down here, this was at this time actually produced by the newspaper. In 1836, the year after, in the United States, the separate story, the American banking, Rothschild created another one, so-called, how they made the recession. So-called how big banks, the fraud to Jackson killed Lincoln and caused the Civil War. They are actually behind all the major events. Following his year, the fighting against his means like actually the Andrew Jackson Rothschild, the central bank in America, President Andrew Jackson finally succeeds in throwing the Rothschild, the central bank, out of America when bank charter is not renewed. That means second bank of the United States. However, in Rothschild in 1930, year after 1912, the Federal Reserve were actually decreed from the House of Congress. This is done. It would not be until 1913 that the Rothschild would be able to set up their third central bank in America, the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, how many Federal Reserve do we have? Federal Reserve in Ohio, Federal Reserve in New York, Federal Reserve in others. We have 12 Federal Reserve branches in America. It's all unified. We call Federal Reserve System. And to ensure no mistake are made, this time they will put one of their own bloodlines, Jacob Schiff, the closest man. The first man, do you remember Meyer, Amschel Rothschild? He has 5 sons. So this Meyer, Amschel Rothschild, this house, and the neighborhood is Schiff family. They're like true family members, like brothers. So Rothschild has a very important tactic. Number one, they intermarried within their nephew, cousin, all of them. If not, they choose like Aspen, Schiffs, and all of the closest Jewish family who were living together in the ghetto of the Frankfurt before. And then they are the one today, the elite of the whole world. So this is what we call the bloodline of the Rothschild family. So Jacob Schiff in charge of the project. He's the one created. The Nathan Mayer Rothschild dies in control of his bank, and then Nathan Mayer Rothschild and sons, and then pass on to his younger brother, James Mayer Rothschild. So this is Andrew Jackson. When he was retired, he said that, "You are a den of viper and thieves. I intend to rout you out. By the eternal God, I will rout you out, you Rothschild." This is not my word, from the expression of the President Andrew Jackson's about, the Rothschild expulsion. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 to 4. Concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, our being gathered to him, we ask you, brothers and sisters, not to become easily unsettled or alarmed by the teaching allegedly promised. Please be careful. Allegedly promised, whether by a prophecy or by word of mouth or by letter, asserting that the day of the Lord has already come. Don't let anyone deceive you. Don't anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until rebellion occurs and the man of the lowliness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. The governmental organization is easygoing. The money manipulation is harder. One world government is backed up by one world economy, by the spirit of Satan. It was long, long ago planned He will approach and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he set himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. In the beginning, I read this, but I want to remind you why I explained Rothschild is evil-minded. And verses 5 to 8. Don't you remember that when I was with you, I used to tell you these things, Apostle Paul said. And now you know what is holding him back, so that he may be revealed at the proper time. The Antichrist will be revealed in the proper time. If you see all of the banking system around the world, you know time is near. For the secret power of the lowliness is already at work. But the one who now holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lowliness one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroyed by splendor of his coming on the earth from the air. And the last verses. The coming of the lowliness will be in accordance with how Satan works. Remember the banking system? One world economy, New World Order, Adam Weishaupt, Freemasonry, Tavistock Institute, Illuminati, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg, Council on the Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commissions, all those masterminded by the spirit of Satan. That's why he said that, the coming of the loneliness one will be in accordance, another means in collaboration, in cooperation with many people like-minded, what influenced by Lucifer, Satan. Still, they've been worshiping over 260 years. If you're looking at the Templars' night, 1,000 years. If you're looking at on the side of the Freemasonry, it's more than 2,950 years. And they do the Molech worship. They do the Baal worship. How the Israelites abandoning God by idolatry. But they are the secret worshiper of Baal. They are secret worshiper of Lucifer. They are secret worshiper of the infant sacrifice. He will use all sort of display of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, not the truth. And all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth to so be saved. For this reason, God sent them a powerful delusion. I told you delusion. So that they will believe the lie. People believe the lie by media, newspaper, social media, book, publication, mass media. And so that all will be condemned. Why? All of us will be condemned if we don't discern the lie. Who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in the wickedness. Don't delight in the lie, because they are wicked. Turn from the wicked way, brothers. Turn from the all of the lying and in the behind of the schemes by Satan. Brethren, I want you to know that the scripture is already telling you the truth. And I pray that the modern day, this COVID-19 is revealing the, we call gross currency restoration system in enactment right now. And you can see the plastic money is being used everywhere. And then we got all the numbers right now. And we are very closer to the one world economy. This one world economy is masterminded by Satan. And this is not once. This New World Order was not created 1 year, more than several hundred years. So be discernible, and be alarmed, and be awakened, so that your souls will believe in the Bible and receive the grace of the Lord. Amen.